I'm 45. I don't think I've ever seen the right quite to this extent, just openly and nakedly authoritarian. And one of the things that seems to undergird it is I'm really not sure how pro-democracy they are anymore, either at home or abroad. I mean, certainly, nominally they are. They nod to it. They give this sort of like, flowery language about what they consider it to be. But then in practice, it seems utterly divorced from that at all. Philosophically, I mean, truly at their core, and again, we could go back to like individual states where the North Carolina legislature will undermine the incoming governor who is, of the left, so that he doesn't have any ability to actually do the job, and numerous other instances like this. Are they an anti-democratic party? How do you view this kind of ideological shift over time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I think they're fascists. When you go, there's all these academics who've written these papers and have these like checkpoints for fascism, and anybody can, go Google it and go read through them, and you go check, 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 check. I find it's kind of funny, right? Because I feel like everybody struggles with this thing where it's kind of hard in real time to really grasp what's happening and understand in its totality, like what the core of this project is. But honestly, this is maybe the first time I've ever felt like it's actually not that difficult now. Like anybody who's really being honest and objective and looking at what they're doing, they're going to come to the conclusion they clearly don't believe in democracy. I mean, the idea of like saying, rejecting election results, I mean, that's like a given now for the rest of our lives among particularly unscrupulous Republicans. I don't think they'll all do it, but I think there's some percentage trying to emulate Trump that will absolutely do it, right? The way they wield power is a terrifying thing. When he did the fake electors slate and he considered invoking the Insurrection Act and they had January 6th, it's like now all this stuff, political violence, all this stuff is on the table. It's on the menu. And so that's why it drives me crazy. To your point, like to see some Democrats not understand that, certainly Democratic leadership of the people of power. Like this is not normal politics. And this is what I need to impress upon Democratic leadership is wake up. This is not normal politics. We are way far beyond what normal politics are. And if you don't adjust to the reality and start like fucking locking some people up or at least campaigning like it matters, well, then it's over. The whole ball game is over. It's a wrap.
This was the part to me that was also, as a side note, when they were saying at the time when the Abrego case was going on and he had been taken to El Salvador, and it was Hakeem Jeffries and the group saying, don't take the bait. But it turned out that the more that they actually did cover the story, which is functionally about not just due process, but rights that we have. I mean, habeas corpus goes back to the Magna Carta, for crying out loud. Right. And so it actually hurt Trump's numbers. And to the extent they pumped the brakes, it went back up. It just seems to me that, like, done correctly, these kinds of issues around due process, around civil rights, they're important in and of themselves, but there's clear evidence that they can be electoral winners under the right circumstances, no?
You're making a great point. It's about fight. Oftentimes the Republicans will take a position on an issue and it polls at like 17%. And then they all look at that and they go, we can make that 52, right? And then they all get on the same page, hammer away at the same talking points and drive the numbers up, right? That's what they do. On the Democratic side, there is no coherent message. There is no strategy. There is no actually doing politics and trying to drive polls. It's this weird thing where it's like, if it's not immediately like over 70%, we can't touch it, right? And so that really explains a big, big difference between Democrats and Republicans. Like, we're talking about basic rights. We're talking about the Constitution and due process and habeas corpus. And if you're saying don't take the bait on that, you really should just get out of politics. Because what you're saying is, who cares about the Constitution? Who cares about due process? If they can take an undocumented immigrant, black bag them and send them to El Salvador and put them in a concentration camp, they can do that to anybody because then they'll just say, well, that was an undocumented immigrant, even if you're not. And you can't prove it because you can't go in front of a judge. You can't go in front of a courtroom. So, yeah, that's the thing is like these things are already actually popular, the left-wing position, but you also do need to do the work of politics and hammer away on it. And it wasn't just Kilmar Abrego and Garcia, which he was one of them, but 288 people got sent to that concentration camp in El Salvador. We have some of their stories, and it's horrific. One person with a mom and dad tattoo, and they said, that's a gang tattoo, and they locked him up. One person who had a tattoo for their 15-year-old autistic brother who they helped look after, that person got locked up because of that tattoo. I mean, just seeing the worst horror stories. It was 60 Minutes who reported 75% of the people there who were sent there have no criminal record whatsoever. And then there was another report, I think it was either from Reuters or Bloomberg, which said it's actually 90% of the people who went there that had no criminal record. And so I look at that and you look at that and we go, holy cow, why are people not screaming about this? Why is this not like, why is every Democratic politician not like screaming from the rooftops about this? They either don't read it and don't know about it, or they read it and go, immigration is a net positive issue for him overall. Therefore, I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to touch it because that would be politically stupid of me. No, what's politically stupid is running and hiding and never fighting on any issue and looking for areas of agreement with the fascists. And unfortunately, that's what the worst Democrats do. That's what, the so-called centrists do and the leadership does.
Where do you think this push actually leads to in the real world? Like, how severe is the look into who's working at Home Depot or getting supplies there? How much tearing apart of the fabric of who is here now? How severe do you think this actually gets? To what extent is what we're seeing in LA going to be scaled out, and you're going to see it in other cities as well? Is this a prelude to more? Is this somewhat aberrant? Where is this current effort from the government headed, and the likely response in your estimation?
So it's already happening all across the country. It's already happening. Stephen Miller wants 3,000 deportations per day, or 3,000 arrests that then lead to deportations per day. The old number that I read was they wanted 1,200 minimum arrests per day. Well, in order to get to those numbers, this is not like a difficult thing to crunch the numbers on. In order to get to those numbers, you have to go after undocumented immigrants who are not criminals and who've been here for a long time and who've built a life and who have a job, right? In fact, Stephen Miller just yelled at ICE agents and told them, what are you doing? Stop just looking for the criminals. You got to go to the Home Depot parking lots. You got to go to hair salons. You got to go to 7-Elevens. You got to go to elementary school graduations, which, by the way, that did literally just happen in LA, where they raided an elementary school graduation and the parents had to run away. So it's already happening. It's already at scale. And again, that's why you see these ICE agents covering their faces. That's why you see them in unmarked cars. That's why you see these, pictures floating around social media of, holy shit, that's an ICE agent. They have a literal Nazi tattoo on their arm. What's going on here? They are deputizing people like Proud Boys, for example, and other far-right extremist groups. They are deputizing them and they're saying, you're going to go ahead and do our dirty work. And by the way, these people all know, the ICE agents all know, what we're doing is not actually legal. I mean, there's been plenty of examples of somebody at an immigration court. The judge dismisses the case of the immigrant in question. They walk out in the hallway, boom, they get abducted. They get abducted, kidnapped, human trafficked to Lord knows where. That's the other thing. They don't tell people where they're taking them. What we're witnessing here, honestly, is the breakdown of law in this country. Because now the message that you're sending is, by the way, don't ever go to your immigration check-in. Don't ever go to your immigration court hearing, because ICE can be waiting there to take you then and there, regardless of what the judge says. And so, yeah, to answer your question, that's already happening. And my guess is that's going to continue. But along with that, you're going to see a continued reaction like we're seeing in LA, where, I mean, the only reason these people are on the streets, if this administration was just going after undocumented immigrant violent criminals, we would not be seeing this reaction, not even close. But they're ripping apart communities, ripping people from their families, and that's what's leading to this. I actually was looking at the numbers earlier, and it's less than 1% of immigrants are violent criminals, less than 1%. And so the actual raw number, they say, is 10,000 or fewer violent criminals who are immigrants. They've already arrested, just in this Trump term so far, they've already arrested over 100,000 people, which means that about 90,000 of these people should not be getting deported, plain and simple. And so it's only going to get worse. And I think the backlash is only going to grow more and more. And then the more the backlash grows, the more Trump goes hyper militarization, send the National Guard into other states, send the Marines into other states, as he's doing today, the day that we're recording this. And it feels to me, Crystal was just saying this to me before, it feels like literally anything and everything is on the table now, right? Like anything is, I could imagine, you can't give me a single scenario where I'd go, hey, that's not going to happen. You just had Trump saying, I'm going to not send any federal money into California anymore. And then Gavin Newsom came out and said, okay, well, if you do that, we're not going to pay federal taxes anymore. And then it was immediately after that Trump decided, I'm going to take the California National Guard from Gavin Newsom and send them into LA. And so could I see a scenario where Trump does freeze the federal funds going into California? Yes. And then can I see in that same scenario where Gavin Newsom goes, you guys don't have to pay federal taxes anymore, citizens of California? Yes. And then this is how like a civil war starts. It's not even an exaggeration. Like this is how a civil war starts. And so the moment that we're in is truly terrifying. I always say, I'm tired of living through history. I'd like that to stop.